Alright, still talking about how can we use our persistence data. Alright, so just a tip, when we're working with shared preference, we're working on UI thread, mainly on UI thread, which could result in potential ANR, which is application non-responsive, if you're doing too much work on the UI. And this one is another tip in the code lab, like shared preference is throwing parsing error as a runtime exception. So that's probably something that happens if you don't really consider parsing it correctly. I think this is normal behavior for almost a lot of stuff. It's not really related to shared preference. And for the preference versus proto data store, we're gonna talk about preference data store mainly in this video. And I want just to add another tip for the Room database. Room database is a big database for it's another layer over SQLite database. So Room is just like an abstract layer between the database, which is SQLite, and our application. So if you want to have a really large complex kind of database where you have multiple tables and have relationship between each of these tables and have some connections between these elements, then you should go with Room database. But now for our app, we just have a very simple serial and brand, and it's very small, so it's kind of pointless to have a Room database. Room database is made for large complex dataset. It's not made for just simple key value pair. Alright, now let's go back to our preference data store. Let's speak about data store in general. Data store is a key value pair or typed object with protocol buffer. Simple, right? A protocol buffer is just this buffer, which is similar to JSON, XML, and so on. It's a neutral language provided by Google. Alright, so which one? Not this one. Yep, this one. So now, it also, if you want, this has like an option if you want to migrate to data store from shared preference, but we don't want to migrate, and that's the main difference between preference data store and proto data store. Preference data store use keys, and proto data store use custom data types, and this custom data type is implemented using protocol buffers. As this also provides type safety, where it's just a try catch exception, but it's still it's considered as type safety. So in order to use data store correctly, either it was prototype or preferences data store, we should never create more than one instance for a single file, because that will cause like an override, which will return in like an illegal state exception when reading or updating, because you wouldn't really understand which file you're gonna update or modify or read from. So you should have one single instance of the data store for a single given file in that the same process. Alright, the generic type of the data store must be immutable. So for this case, for this one, you will try to eliminate hard to catch bugs by making it immutable. So you need to specify the specific type and not reassign the data store again. Like you just, once you assign it, that's it. You're not gonna reassign it. So that's kind of good way to prevent hard to catch bugs. And if you keep reassigning your data stores, you probably miss up like a certain location or a certain update. So yeah, that's kind of good tip. And to be honest, I'm not sure of this number 3. If you can benefit from it, feel free so, but I really don't understand how it's gonna be different, how can we benefit from it, but I just don't find a way we can benefit from it. Alright, by the way, it's recommended to use protocol buffer, which provide immunity guarantee through this protocol buffer, which provide type safety, which is just a try catch exception, which we're gonna be visiting in the next video. Anyway, for now, for the current video, we just need to our dependencies, ignore it. For a preferences store, it's just very simple. We have a key value, but we need to initialize our preferences data store. So in order to create it, we need just to have like a related to context. It's just extension property on the context, and we are gonna return of type DataStore and its preference, and we are gonna delegate the creation getter or setter by delegating it to preference DataStore, and we just annotate the name with we give the name of the preference DataStore. And in order to read from it, it's just pretty simple. We need to have the key for what we are reading, and we're gonna check for this data store, and in this data store we have some data, and we will map this data based on the key that we have here. And since we're gonna take the preference by key, and we usually give a default value so we can handle edge cases, for example, for nullability also. And if you want to write for a preference data store, you're gonna reach for this data store. You're gonna modify by using edit method, and in this method you're just gonna put lambda. You're gonna just pass the key which you have added here, and you're just gonna change its value to whatever you want to add, and that's it for preference data store. It's kind of simple, it's kind of straightforward, it's easier. Next we're going to talk about proto DataStore and see how can we benefit from it.